Bonsoir, my podcast chums, and welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of WWE Backlash France 2024. I'm Luke Owen, DAD. This is Dan Layton. Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast channel. Please do press the subscribe button. I have to really enunciate.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
Have you seen YouTube's new little bit of functionality it has?
No.
So when you say subscribe, the subscribe button glows.
Oh, I
underneath.
love that.
I don't know if it does it on live streams, but it does it on like
when you're on Zoom and I'll do this, and then it'll just be like like a bubble behind me. I don't want that.
I've not seen that.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Terrible for cocktail records. But yes, please do press the subscribe button and give us a little thumbs up as well. Leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode of WWE, this pay-per-view, this B show that was elevated to a A-star show by an A-star crowd. And if you are watching live, please do join the conversation with our live SWAF Nation and get your thoughts in. If you want your thoughts read out on the air, it's WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them before the end of the show.
Of course, we have a big team here at WrestleTalk. There are very many of us who watch the show live, some of whom who caught up with it in the morning. We could all have been filing into the room to do a review, but today, it's you, it's I, only two, simplement deux!
Do you want to do any more of the great chant that we have?
I'm sorry. This was the best night of my life. I had such a good time.
I said this in my edited review, but I think I'm just going to put it out now because a lot of the comments on today's video are being like, so Luke, did you enjoy the crowd then? Because every single match I was like, the crowd were great. The crowd were great. The crowd were great all night.
The crowd were the star of the show.
I think they were. And like my opening remarks of my edited review were just that. I think there is a lot of big wins in the Triple H era of WWE. Not just, since they branded it to the Triple H era, which by the way is an incredibly narcissistic thing to do. But the Triple H era of the show. It's not called the Stone Cold era, but it was.
Is it called the New Era? I didn't know they called it the Triple H era.
Yeah, the Triple H era. But like I'm thinking even. I would actually say the Nick Khan era of WWE, when he was the one who was orchestrating TV deals and he was doing this. I think the big win of WWE since Nick Khan took the position that he has is this idea of looking at the first W in WWE and being like, why do we keep doing shows just in the US and Canada? Why don't we do shows all over the world? Why don't we do a show in Wales? Why don't we do a show in Puerto Rico? Why don't we do a show in France? Why don't we do a show in Berlin? And then they go to those tourism boards and say, give us money and we'll bring our shows to you. And the tourism boards have given them money to do these shows. And because these are audiences that aren't starved for wrestling, there's wrestling, if you're in London, throw a stone any day of the week and you'll find a wrestling show to go to. But you don't get WWE, the big mainstream thing, on a regular basis. So when they did Money in the Bank here last year, you bet your asses we filled that place out. We were super duper loud. Puerto Rico was the same thing with Backlash last year. They filled that place out and they were super loud for it. They had the same thing with Backlash here. It will be the same at Clash in the Castle in Scotland. It will be the same at Bash in Berlin in Germany. These shows, it was the same in Elimination Chamber. Yeah, it was. They didn't even pack the place out. They were still like super loud. So this idea of doing B shows, these 5-match cards in these places that don't get WWE on a mainstream level on a regular basis, elevate them. And so they don't just feel like B shows. They don't just feel like contractual obligations. You have to do these because you've got to deal with Peacock. They feel like events. They feel special. They feel like you have to tune into them because what you'll see is good wrestling on the card, but an incredible atmosphere that will then just push that into another level.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd is a vital part of wrestling. And for me, the crowd last night was the story of this show. The show I really enjoyed. I thought the show was great. I enjoyed every single match in it to varying degrees. There was one match that I thought was fine, at sometimes pushed to good, was turned to great by the crowd. But elsewhere, there were... I was trying to do that thing. So I think a lot about a comment that we got on one of our end-of-year awards things. We're talking about our favorite pay-per-views, and the comment said, I despise your live watch parties because it skews the way you think about the shows. Well, and I just thought the use of the word despise was absolutely hilarious in that context. But you do have to sort of check it. We sometimes, especially at those events, we have great time, great energy. So maybe that does skew how you... Whereas if I'm at home watching it, am I really going to get into the show as well? I don't know. I think personally, I'm always trying to check that and just recognize what's going on. So throughout the show, I'm like thinking about the match, thinking about the context, thinking about what's going on. And I genuinely think the show itself was really, really good. But the crowd's energy... I put out a tweet that was sort of like, sorry, America, you don't get pay-per-views anymore. And that's reductive because, you know, there are some incredibly hot American crowds. Chicago, Puerto Rico, of course, is America. Yeah. So like
go to a New York show and like, the New York crowd will be there for it.
Exactly. And I think that there is something about the sort of like the show that they are putting on. When you can go and see the show as often as they can see the show in America, they need to put on a better show in order to earn that joy from the crowd. But for us, who don't get it every week, for Australia, who get it never, they got to sing Seth Rollins' theme. I know it was an in-ring Grayson Waller effect segment that didn't really amount to much, but that's kind of part of the fun. You go there and it's like this cathartic energy of just joy. When we had All In, you know, a part of it was singing Judas. I happened to be in the queue for Rose at the time, so I didn't get that experience, but everyone else had a great time. Yeah. So it's one of those, you know, whether or not you like Jericho in that moment or Fozzy or even the song, it was a fun collective experience. I think we lost this for so long, and I don't just mean wrestling fans. Like Tempest tweeted something about like for 8 years all he's wanted is this kind of energy and passion, and it makes things 20 times better. But also we as humans lost this experience for a few years there. Like we didn't get to be together, singing at the top of our voices, having that shared experience. A hot crowd that I keep watching clips of Madonna's concert in Rio last night. You don't know about this?
No.
Madonna performed a show in Rio last night on the beach. 1.6 million people turned up. It's a lot. 1.6 million. There were just screens and speakers all the way down the beach in Rio, and everyone's obviously there are people who paid money to be, I assume, paid money to be closer. Everyone else is there for free. There's clips from people's hotels showcasing the length and the breadth of the sheer number of people having this shared experience. And like Madonna's gig is going to be good because it's Madonna, but that one is so special because the crowd, they're all part of it. I kept thinking, this crowd are having the time of their lives. Of
course.
And I couldn't be happier for them.
You and I said this on the prediction show.
Yeah.
Like and I'm not saying that we're like amazing soothsayers or anything like that, but this is exactly what we said was going to happen on the prediction show, was that it does not matter that this is a 5-match card. It does not matter that the hype for the show wasn't that big. It does not matter that the world title matches felt mid-card. None of that mattered because the crowd was going to be there for it. The crowd were going to elevate it. And not only that, the wrestling itself is of such a high standard worldwide at the moment. Wrestling is just of a high standard that it will be impossible for the talent that was on the show to go out there and put on a bad show. Even if there was negative booking going against them, which there really isn't in the Triple H era, the wrestling would have been great. So if the wrestling is great and the crowd are great, you're going to have a good time. We said this exactly what was going to happen on our prediction show, and it did come to fruition because you will struggle to have a bad show with this level of talent on the card. And when you have an audience that wants to enjoy this, plus as well, the average ticket price for this show is reportedly $300.
Right.
So if you've spent $300 for a wrestling ticket, you're probably going to want to make sure you have a good time.
Live your best life.
And live your best life so you can have made sure it was worth every penny you spent. And those people have said it was worth every penny.
And that's why, like, to kind of echo that point is that, like, if they go there and phone it in and put on a whatever show, I'd be pissed, right? But I think the money that they are charging for the tickets in Glasgow is obscene. I was so excited. I booked a hotel the second they announced it so that I could have a space before the prices rocketed. I really wanted to go. I was there on the pre-sale. I was literally in the office queuing. The tickets get released. They're so expensive. It's no dice for Dan Layton. I was gutted about that. And yet this show, quality of the matches and the experience, they all I was like, oh, maybe it's not. Do you know what I mean?
And that's it.
That's a gross way to think about it.
But that's it. It's a show like this, and you see a crowd like this having fun. That is then is a subconscious thing to you. Is like, I want to be a part.
I want to be a part of it.
I want to be a part of that. I'm having FOMO that I was not in that crowd. So when the next time they're in town, I want to make sure I go to it. And that is like, it's two things like beautifully colliding together. And really it's because of this thing over here. WWE is so hot right now. Yeah. And so everyone is so super over. You combine that with a crowd that really wants to have a good time and is starved of seeing mainstream WWE on a regular basis. Those two beautiful worlds collide and you get an incredible atmosphere like the one we had last night, like the one we had at Puerto Rico last year, like the one we had at Clash of the Castle in Wales, like the one we'll have at Clash of the Castle in Scotland, like the one we had at Elimination Chamber in Australia. That's why I mean about that. I think this is the huge success of Nick Khan's tenure within WWE.
To the point where I haven't cancelled my Glasgow hotel yet. I might still go just to be part of the energy in the city.
Absolutely, just be there.
And go and see some independent shows. And actually, when I was watching this, and I know some people don't like to do the whole comparison thing, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I'm looking at the calendar in August, and if I'm Tony Khan booking All In, there's 3 Wednesdays in August before. Come and do a show in Glasgow. Come and do a show in Newcastle. Do a show in Manchester. Do a show in Cardiff. Do 3 Dynamites from the UK. Oh my God, people would eat that stuff up.
Yeah.
And it's all about, again, it's perception. The whole business in this show of taking a good match and making it great because of the perception of the crowd. Perception is reality. I think that's the common phrase that they all put over or whatever. I think it was a really special show, and it shows what is possible with each individual component part and how magic it can be when they're all brought together.
On top of that, because I'm a firm believer, I think you mentioned this earlier, crowds can like have an impact on how you perceive a wrestling match to be. Like if you are wrestling a great match but it's in front of a dead crowd, I think that does hurt the impact that match may have had if it was in front of a better crowd, for example. And to that point, wrestlers feed off of that. I've done lots of live shows in my career as both a content creator here on this channel, but I've done live shows for other places as well. I've been a live performer for many times. I was a child actor. I've done a lot of live performances. You feed off energy. You feed off crowd reactions. And when you are having that and you're feeling that energy, you perform more and you perform better and you get into it more. And like from the opening of this show, when Kevin Owens came out, his music hit and the place, like the roof came off, then Orton came out and this crowd just started singing every
20 odd years of listening to that song and I haven't heard a lyric. Yeah. I know now.
Every single word of Randy Orton's entrance theme was belted out by this audience. And I had a moment when I recalled you and I doing commentary on Money in the Bank last year when we just stopped talking for a little bit and I just put on to producer Rich and I was like, just go to the white. Like, just don't focus on us. Just focus on the crowd reaction behind us. And WWE did that last night, where they were just like,
Samantha Irvin held off.
Don't do commentary.
Yeah.
Don't do commentary. Don't have Samantha do anything like that. Let the crowd tell the audience what this is.
Because I did watch it live. Right, I was first of all luxuriating in my.
Because we haven't said this because we talked about stuff about. I didn't watch this live.
Right, yeah, you watched it like I watched it.
I watched it afterwards because I was hanging out with my kid and then my mum came over and I cooked her dinner. So I didn't actually watch this until like 10 p.m. or so, like 11:30 or something.
I have no responsibility, so I was watching it live. I was luxuriating in the sunshine of the evening and my lovely couch and the fact that it was a novelty that it was happening in the daytime. Again, checking that because there was this thing that. I saw a tweet a little while ago about like how British wrestling YouTubers they taint their view of the show because they have to stay up late and watch it, and that was I think because they had.
I don't watch it live. I get up in the morning.
But even those of us who do, because I do, I've done this for 25 years, mate. I know what I'm doing at this point. It doesn't bother me. But there was something quite thrilling.
You're a night owl anyway.
I am, yeah. I hate the morning time, but there was something quite thrilling about this one. I was just beaming because of them singing Randy Orton's theme. I was like, I think I was just out loud saying to my poor beleaguered girlfriend, like, oh, this is just the best. This is so much fun. Look at them singing. Listen to that. Oh my God, that's incredible. I was like so into it. And the interesting thing, before we do a whole show on the crowd, for me was like, we're talking about a crowd making or breaking a show. We were at Rev Pro. Hardcore Country Gate.
The Mickey James story, yeah.
Which was, for those who aren't aware of the law, we were at Rev Pro the night before All In. And
a great show.
It was a fantastic show. There was a triple threat women's match with Mickey James in it. And as a result of Mickey James being in there, obviously everyone was chanting Hardcore Country at the beginning, and that was quite fun, and I was getting involved. I couldn't believe I was seeing Mickie James perform. And then 2 sections of the crowd for the entire match were singing Hardcore Country at each other.
It was a call and response.
It was a call and response, and they were not looking at the wrestling. They were looking at each other, and if there was a moment where it went quiet, they'd try and bring it back up, and they were doing it. They were fully going into business for themselves. I was a hawk, both SmackDown and Backlash for this. I was looking out for it. I was like, is this simplement deux? Is this phenomenal? I thought the phenomenal chant in the segment on SmackDown kind of stepped on what they were trying to achieve.
I think it slightly did in the main event as well, because there was moments when they were doing like near full sequences where the crowd were not counting along with because they were singing the song instead.
Yeah, I see that.
But so 10 or so years ago, before,
can I just finish my
absolutely you do. I actually, yeah, I don't want you to finish your story.
Just basically was going to be that I think over the course of the show, the crowd were doing all of those chants, but were so in and so locked into the crowd, the performance, and so chanting for each other, chanting Cody, chanting Stardust, chanting AJ, chanting for Jey, chanting for Bianca. They were so in with everybody that it just sort of showed it was there to complement their good time. That's
the point I was actually going to sort of piggyback onto. So about 10 or so years ago, BritWres, before WWE tried to kill BritWres and actively succeeded in it a little bit until the industry had to rebuild itself because WWE just did their best to kill the scene off because it was getting too good. BritWres fans had a reputation online for being bad fans. And this is not just like BritWres, this is sort of like European wrestling fans et al. Because a lot of them are also football fans, and this is sort of like it's kind of traveled over from like the football chants kind of carry into what we do at wrestling and stuff.
Bailey,
absolutely. You look at NXT Takeover London, it's sort of like a very grand scale version of that. But the idea of sort of taking 80s pop songs and just putting a wrestler's name into it instead.
That comes from football. Yeah, we do that.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean,
in Manchester, the 90s house music.
Absolutely. Yeah. The hacienda scene.
Yeah.
So you take like the idea of those sort of football chants and you put it into wrestling and stuff, and that's become part of our brand, not just as BritWres, but as European fans et al. But we had a reputation of being bad fans. And American criticisms of Brit wrestling was, you are not getting over the wrestlers, you're getting over yourselves. And BritWres fans used to argue against that, being like, no, we're having a good time, and by having us a good time, the wrestlers are having a good time, and we're getting the wrestlers over because we're all just having a good time together. Our chants are in favor of wrestlers. It is support of wrestlers. Just because I'm not going, let's go AJ,
right.
and I've instead taken the song. I've taken a Tears for Fears song, and I've put AJ Styles into it. Does not mean that I'm not.
Which one?
I think I would probably take...
derailed your point, but yeah.
Mad World.
Okay.
And I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of sad.
Break the whole building. That must have been deeply unpleasant for everyone listening. I do apologize for encouraging it.
But the point is that, like, I think that's what we saw last night. So writ large was this idea of people were just into it. And people were into the wrestlers.
Yeah.
And that's what the songs are there for. It's not to get themselves over. And the thing that I really delighted in from then going online to see the reaction to Backlash was you didn't see those criticisms we used to get 10 years ago. You were seeing people like, man, they're having a good time. Man, they're really enjoying this wrestling. Man, their chants, their songs, their energy elevated this show.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we've done 18 minutes talking about the crowd.
Yeah.
Before we've even looked at the match.
Sorry. So I'm going to shout out Pontus Olsen here, Flat World.
Well, that's quite something. That is. Yep. Hey, he's just asking questions.
He's just asking questions.
Don't know. But yeah, like to sort of like, I guess, neatly segue into talking about the show writ large.
Yeah.
This business of like, did they take a 2 out of 5 show and make it a great show? Well, number one, yes, but also 2 out of 5 is not. I didn't think
I
it was
wouldn't
2 out of 5.
do
I thought it was much better than
that.
But
I think if you watch, because this stems again from a conversation we had off air. There's a comment that was on the WrestleTalk news video. It was like, you have overrated this show. Watch it again on mute and you'll see it's a 2 out of 5 show. I disagree with that because, again, I think that you don't watch wrestling shows on mute. I think that would be a mad way to watch wrestling.
The bit I struggled with the most was the early pandemic when they were doing it in front of no crowd and no crowd noises. It was like the inverse of football. When I was watching football with crowd noises, I couldn't hack it, so I would turn the crowd noises off. I couldn't watch wrestling without crowd noises. It was so weird.
When we did our TLC episode of Worst WrestleManias, and I didn't have it on my list, but others had WrestleMania 36. A lot of the comments were like, it's actually not as bad of a WrestleMania. I can't go back and watch it.
It's hard, but I think, to exactly as you illustrated, they are responding to the energy from the crowd, and it's pushing them to do even more.
So when Owens, sorry, go on.
No, just purely that. Like that's why I think the show became great. It's not in spite of the crowd, it's because of the crowd.
That's exactly it. And that's kind of the point I was making as well about Americans' criticisms of the Brit Rest scene. It's like, no, our energy kind of then feeds into the wrestlers and creates these incredible performances. And we saw that in this opening match here. Because Owens came out, place comes unglued. Randy Orton comes out. The pair of them are just standing there. By the way, I loved how this thing looked.
Yeah.
Loved the lo-fi entrance ramp. I loved the kink in it going towards the ring. I just loved the way that this was all set up and how it looked. And the pair of them just stood there and was just chatting to each other and just like listening to this crowd. And Kevin Owens, man. Like, you want to talk about a wrestler that feeds off an audience. Because the Bloodline come out, Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, and they just get into this brawl, and the place goes ballistic for this brawl. Producers come down, and security comes down, and Kevin Owens starts stunnering all of them as well. Nick Aldis comes out and said, you want to attack producers? You want to attack security? Fine. This is a no DQ street fight. The place comes unglued again. The roof that had just been glued back on came unglued once again. And then these two teams just beat the piss out of each other in the most fun and entertaining way. Everything they did was getting these huge reactions. It was so fun. It was just such a fun and entertaining match.
It was everything it should have been.
Absolutely.
You know? So when Aldis comes out doing his Daddy GM routine, which I absolutely love, and because he's got this kind of energy where he's like, he has a control, but it can sometimes be stretched. And he's like, don't step to me. Like I'm the one who makes the rules here, and if you want a street fight, you can have one, kind of thing. He's like, there was something about his performance and what his performance has been with Paul Heyman lately. A great segment on SmackDown, which we're not going to get a chance to talk about, where Heyman lets slip that he hasn't spoken to Roman yet, which feeds into this match since WrestleMania. I think Nick Aldis is playing a fantastic character here. And even just the intro of like when the guys are standing there and basking in the glow, Randy Orton's 22 years into his career and hearing this kind of thing, it must be like he's come back from this injury and is getting this, and it's like it's everything he ever dreamed of, I'm sure.
It's one of those moments as well where I'm like, and this is why you don't bring back his old theme, like, because this is the
certain old themes. There's a nostalgia for certain old themes. I'm sorry, I'm a current Drew McIntyre song fan. I don't like too many lines.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah, so I miss Asuka's old theme. Please never take Bianca's theme away from me. There are certain themes that just exist and they should stay. This one is one of them.
I want to just put over Kevin Owens here because it kind of hit me while I was watching this. Kevin Owens has earned this.
Yeah.
He had the chance to not re-sign with WWE. And he could have gone, and he would have been welcomed into AEW.
This was in like 2019, 20?
Exactly. This was like pre the hot period. So like Drew McIntyre re-signing now makes sense. They're incredibly hot. Seth Rollins re-sign now, always a foregone conclusion. But it's a hot product. It makes sense to re-sign now. These AEW stars that have got their contracts coming up that are sort of keeping an eye on this hot product over here. Like, of course they've got an eye on this product. It's a hot product. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn took a risk by re-signing with WWE and not going across to the much hotter product at that period of time, AEW, because it was ice cold in 2019. Then obviously you get into it's even worse, but it's an ice cold product in 2019. But they took the risk and stuck with it. And boy, howdy, it's paid dividends for them now, because now they're in the hot product and they are super duper over within that hot product. They trusted in the process. They trusted in some of those people with power and like the potential to take power. And I think it's paid off for them.
You just said my least favorite word about 20 times, and I'm going to scooch right. I don't like the word product. I'm going to consign it to the bin as quickly as possible.
What's wrong with the word product?
I don't like talking about... It's the same as talking about a movie as content. Like, I hate the word product in this context. I just really... It's my big ick.
What would you prefer?
I just like to say it's a hot show. Like, it's wrestling. I don't know. I don't like saying it's a hot product. I think also there's something British about it. And it really...
a hot product.
A hot product. It gives me the ick. But whatever. It's like...
Okay. For you, Dan... I will do my best.
Say all you want on Thursdays.
I will do. I'll talk about the product all I want on Thursdays when I do my Dynamite review. But for you,
for me,
I will not. I will not say it.
Love you for that.
In the same way, never say to me you're putting the podcast world on notice, because
do I say that?
No, you don't.
But
that's my wrestling phrase. I'm consigning.
I'm putting you on. Putting the locker room on notice.
I hate that phrase. That and WCW 2000.
Ollie Davis hates giving flowers.
Does he? I used that in my review today.
Yeah, he hates. I give him the flowers. He doesn't like that. Maybe he just hates flowers. Either way, anyway. But your point stands, which is that there was a moment in this match where Kevin Owens did that frog splash off the apron onto Tama Tonga and sort of screamed at him. Yeah. And I was like, God love you this character and this moment.
That's feeding off the crowd. Like you could feel the emotion from Kevin Owens. You saw it with Bayley when that triple threat was going on as well. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
I still find it so weird when Michael Cole and Corey Graves talk about New Japan history.
Did you see the pre-show?
Yeah, with Big E
and Punk kind of going to it.
Yeah, but like I find it so weird, particularly as well when they're like, he's had great matches with Evil, and I'm like, no, he hasn't. Like, because very few people have. But you've read it on Cage Match, so I guess that's now canon within the world. But my favorite moment of this was when Solo Sikoa went to give the spike to Randy Orton on the announcer's table, and Orton hit that RKO from out of nowhere. It was beautiful. Those announce tables, reinforced announce tables as well. Like on this night, crikey, I am the table. They were not breaking at all. We had a big Fisherman Buster from Kevin Owens through a table bridge. He'd set up to get the win when all of a sudden the referee... Have you seen this fan footage?
No.
So anyway, what we saw on TV was the referee got pulled out of the ring.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people at home went, here is the debut of Jacob Fatu.
Quite.
Because Jacob Fatu had told people on WrestleMania Sunday, I can't take any more indie bookings. I've signed with WWE. Then places like PW Insider, Fightful confirmed, yes, he has signed with WWE.
Heavily rumored. We talked about it on the prediction show.
PW Insider said he's going to be debuting soon, but those plans then changed. But fan speculation, this was not report, it was fan speculation that he was going to debut. We said it on our prediction show. So a lot of people was like, wait a second, that's Tanga Loa. That is the brother of Tama Tonga. That is his GOD tag partner. And it was a genuine Tanga Loa's here. And the reason why it was that is because, again, credit to WWE for keeping this under the radar. Credit for New Japan for not announcing his contract was up. Because they did it for everyone else. They announced that Okada's contract was up. They announced that Ospreay's contract was up. They announced that Tama Tonga's contract was up. And did farewell tours for them. Did not do it for Tanga Loa.
I just don't care about Tanga Loa.
Well, have you seen him wrestle? So it's and I'm a God fan as well. I'm a God apologist.
Yeah.
But in fairness. But so when he debuted, it was a genuine whoa, Tanga Loa's here. And I thought it was a genuinely brilliant shock addition to this group
presentation,
that I didn't see coming. And I thought it was a really, really cool moment.
It was. And there was something I really want to take a second to talk about the Bloodline Wolfpack, as I'm calling them. This kind of
I think they're called the Rogue Bloodline. That's what Michael Cole called them on commentary.
Until I see it written down.
This is the Pride all over again.
Same with Pride. we were calling Lashley and the Street Profits the Pride for ages, and I've only seen it written down once, and that's when it's official for me during the draft. Bloodline Wolfpack, and I'm saying that purely because Solo wears red a lot. It's this thing of they were. Is it working yet? Is it not? I'm a big fan of the work they've been doing. I think it's been really interesting. There was something about the Bloodline with Roman where they had a swagger. They would take slow pace. Solo was the muscle. Roman was and he was never terrifying because he was never the one doing the dirty work. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at Tama Tonga and Solo stood together, Roman had aura. I don't want to undersell this. And this is a compliment to both sets. There's something about wanting to acknowledge the superstar aura of Roman Reigns. Seeing Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa stood together, if I look them in the eye, I will disintegrate. They are so terrifying.
Very scary.
And then by the end of it, through the match, Tama Tonga took a beating in this match. There was a moment where they're setting up the chairs and I was terrified. I thought what it was going to be was a senton off the rope from Kevin and he'd just go through it. But the moment where sort of Tama Tonga gets back up and he's got all these welts from the kendo stick on his back and he's really giving it some, I'm like, you look like a machine. Like, you're taking this beating and you're still getting up, kind of thing. That brainbuster was rough as anything, looked painful. So when they finally do get the win and they are standing there and Solo is shouting at Paul Heyman to put up the one, I was like, oh my god. Like, it was intense. And I love that what we have here is two versions of the bloodline. One where Roman is smart enough to keep everybody in check, and the other one where it's all about muscles. It's not about brains, it's about brawn.
And they are going to be the team of brawn, and I think that's going to be, well, without Strowman, of course. And I think that's going to be endlessly interesting because clearly, and I think a lot of people have made this prediction. I think we talked about this. I think me and Tempo might have talked about this on the SmackDown episode when Tama Tonga debuted. Yeah. We did the podcast review of it. And I said, well, like, this is probably going to lead to War Games, and it'll be this new bloodline, which, at that point I said we'll probably have The Rock in it. I'm now looking at it being Solo, God, and Jacob Fatu versus Roman, the Usos, and Sammy. And it is the OG Bloodline versus Bloodline Rogue, and that'll be your War Games this year.
It's so interesting as well because we obviously had that segment later on in the show with the Bloodline walking past Jimmy.
Jey.
That one. Jimmy's brother Jey. I wasn't finished. They look the same. I don't know what you want from me. Here's the annoying thing. I can so easily tell them apart at all times. It's just their names both have J's in them.
I know.
Anyway, when Heyman walks past Rikishi and it's just like he's talking, no, they're like they sort of stare at him and then there's almost like there's a plea in his face.
Heyman's pleading to him was like, "You need to come home."
Yeah, and knowing that he hasn't. Oh my god! The applause that the French crowd gave that segment on SmackDown when all this, first of all, classy as anything to give them applause, but I was genuinely like, here I am watching SmackDown of a Friday whatever, going, oh, like it's a soap opera gasp of, I mean, that's what wrestling is, it's a soap opera, but the idea that he hasn't spoken to Roman yet, genuinely being like oh my god.
Which also means that it was he that pulled Roman from the draft, not Roman's decision, which is what he had said previously.
All of it is so fascinating. And this is the point of, like, I'm so ready for this next phase of the Bloodline story. And I think based on the material, like 3 weeks post-Mania.
That's what I said. I said this on that SmackDown podcast that I was on. And I think this is going to be a very exciting new phase for the Bloodline. And the success of it will be not just it's new faces. Crucially for me, it's new faces that are there all the time.
Yeah.
Because when you didn't have Roman and it was just Solo and Jimmy, it's like, well, who are these two goobers? It's just like having JD and Dom as the only members of the Judgment Day on the show, without a Rhea Ripley there. But now you've got these people and this faction that are going to be on TV all the time. That is going to help them get over, and that's going to make them feel like a big presence, so that when Roman does come back and they do eventually, these two tribes go to war.
Yeah.
Speaking of 80 songs, I think it's going to be really, really great, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I know a lot of people are sort of making fun of Tanga Loa's wrestling, and I saw someone there saying, like, come on guys, it's not God of 2016 anymore, it's God of 2024. Like, they're not the same team. I totally get that, but I think you can do a lot of smoke and mirrors. I think you can hide some of that, and I think you can have a really, really good presence. You'll have that aura, and I think that aura will really carry it. The fan footage I referenced earlier, though, is that in his very first thing he did in WWE, he blew his spots.
Did he?
Yeah, he came out of the ring too late, so the referee had to throw himself out of the ring, and then Tanga Loa got out and dragged him.
Right.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Well,
but the WWE cameras, which are the crucial ones, they shot it correct. They made it look correct.
Its presentation is everything. I don't watch New Japan that often. I tune in now and again for bits of the G1, but I don't watch, the shows overall, so I don't actually know too much of Tanga Loa and Tama Tonga's work, other than this bit with Okada.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Tempest went viral on Twitter because he shared that clip months ago, being like, this is the moment that Okada decided he was going to leave New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right. Like, aside from that, I've not seen anything. The presentation that they've given, and I haven't seen that fan footage, but the presentation from the show, which is really all you can take from it in good faith, was effective.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I could have done with the video package to explain who he was. So
we got SmackDown for that.
I'm being facetious, of course.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
It's my least favorite bad faith criticism of like, where's the video package? Like, I don't know who this person is.
Well, it's Solo Sikoa.
Well, I know.
Clash of the Castle, yeah.
That's it. But it is. I'm not going to get into the one rule for them, one rule for the other. But like the argument of like, I don't know who this person is, and I don't have access to Google apparently. But you can bring in someone like a Tanga Loa, and people are like, oh, I don't need a video package. I just know who that person is. Like so every time a new person debuts, I was like, where's the video package?
But again, it's good faith or bad faith. Like people who is operating in good faith in these conversations.
But I like to make fun of those people.
That's fair.
So yeah, I thought this was very, very effective, very cool. And an incredible way to open the show. I thought it was a really, really fun match, and I think we're going to be set for some very, very interesting things.
Yeah, and also just quickly to put over production, the split screen element of it all. I said during Double or Nothing's review last year that I've never seen a live montage before. Obviously, at that time they had the band playing their theme. And so the music was playing while and at one point the ref is just bleeding and it's everywhere and it's chaos. And the same thing when we were at All In for Stadium Stampede, and suddenly like we're just sort of watching what's going on over there. Then suddenly the van comes out and then there's Claudio up at the top with Eddie Kingston. That kind of thing is so fun and so electric. This reminded me of Attitude Era stuff. So when The Rock and Cody at WrestleMania are bursting out and going into the crowd, the electricity of that, pun intended, is so strong. And it was the same here. Like, God, it was great. It was really effectively produced. Well done for that.
Well, let us know what you thought of it in the comments down below. And if you want to get your thoughts read out on the air, it is WrestleTalk.com/support. And Benny Boy is going to kick us off here to say, so in WWE kayfabe, Camacho was from the streets of Mexico with Hunico. So is now in the Bloodline and the son of Haku. So, yes, Tanga Loa is not new to WWE.
Yeah.
He was previously Camacho back in the day. Was a lot of people are having a lot of fun with. However, I'm with Benny Boy instead, though, which is that The Rising are now in WWE. So The Rising was a faction in TNA comprised of
this one with
Eli Drake, Drew Galloway, and Tanga Loa. All three of them now in WWE.
Wow. 6 people are going to pop their tits off during that Royal Rumble moment.
Kevin here said, Tanga Loa was a genuine surprise. I'm wondering if Jacob Fatu will side with Jimmy. Paul's face when he saw Jey was great. I love his acting. The main event and the opener were great. And Jey's entrance will forever live in my head. Great show.
Jimmy is injured at the moment, right?
He sure is, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, I think you have Jacob with the Rogue, with Bloodline Rogue, because if you're going to do OG Bloodline, should be OG Bloodline. Which is Roman, Jey, Jimmy, Sammy.
And I think
you're doing those two going together in War Games, that's the 4 I want.
Bringing Jimmy and Jey back together is, I think, kind of crucial at some point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Notorious Ali9 said, so Bloodline Wolfpack with Jacob and Bloodline OG with Roman, Usos and Sammy at War Games. Rock intervenes and sets up Roman match at Mania. Sounds like a great plan. What a great show and crowd in France. I agree. I wonder if the end game is to do War Games with New Bloodline versus the OG Bloodline. The pop for the Usos reunion and Roman acknowledging Sami Zayn are going to be insane. I mean, like...
That was Matt Hennessy. Thank you, Matt Hennessy.
Did I not say that?
No.
I do apologize. Do apologize, Matt. Yeah, I think that's going to be the moment when they're like, Jey will like, I know a guy.
Yeah.
It's that Avengers moment of just like, I know a guy. I'll go and get this person over here. And there'll be that moment when they approach Sami Zayn, or Sammy runs down to save them from something, the conflicted moment of like that PTSD that he was suffering from. Almost like that, not a great example because the match sucked. But when Jericho and Edge decide to go and save Team WWE when they're facing off against the Nexus.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like walking away from it while John Cena's doing his terrible acting in front of the Nexus. And then they just like stops and touch the arm. They look over and then they run back down. A moment like that. I think those 4 reuniting is going to be very special.
And I just think taking this belt off Roman has allowed for, the We Want Roman chants are not the same as the CM Punk chants or the We Want so-and-so chants that are there to say you aren't good enough. They're there as a taunt for Solo. Yeah. It's so brilliantly managed.
Rakai here said, I love you guys and everything you do for pro wrestling fans. Last night was incredible and I'm still adjusting to Cole and Graves openly talking about Bullet Club and New Japan. Props to Trips for actually acknowledging wrestling outside of WWE.
Honestly, the bar is so low.
Yeah, it's Solo Sikoa.
Hello.
I just wish they'd get their history wrong. Cody Rhodes was not a leader of the Bullet Club. Stop saying that
it's
he was.
Wrestling, it's all lies anyway.
Mark Flay said, decent pay-per-view, but expecting Jacob Fatu and getting Tanga Loa instead is like expecting Charlotte Flair and getting David Flair. I mean, not that far off. Ket here said, am I supposed to feel bad for Paul Heyman? I almost do, but he's the reason he's in the position to begin with. Heyman alone is the reason I'm interested how the story plays out. Yeah. That's kind of the key to this, is that Heyman, the master manipulator, this forever bellend who has been ruining people's lives and basking in that. There's this idea of Sonic the Comic Dr. Robotnik is that he doesn't actually want to win. He just wants to cause misery.
Yeah, right.
That is what Paul Heyman was. He was just causing misery for all of these people. And by extension, doing that was winning. Now is a sympathetic character because he's in over his head. And now is in a position for the first time in Paul Heyman's life, he's not in control. And how does he respond to that? And I find him so interesting in all of this.
Yeah, his performances are absolutely exceptional. They're nuanced and layered, and I think that's... So in the pro wrestling world, we do tend to go good or bad, and something that the Triple H era, the Paul Levesque era has done is bring in that kind of like shades of grey, take a little bit of time thing, which I quite like. I think of Cersei in Game of Thrones, who is objectively a horrible, horrible person, and yet who I feel a deep sympathy for at many points in the show.
Shame
is one of them. Like the bit where she's potentially going to kill her child because of forces that were, you know, there's a whole in the second series. She's thinking of poisoning Tommen to save him from the war, kind of thing, and it's a horrible thing she's thinking of doing, but you get the pathos for it. It's that makes shows and storylines so compelling, and Heyman is playing that role at the moment, and I really appreciate it. Very good.
WrestleTalk for Life here said, as of right now, I can't take Solo seriously at all. I think it'll take time for me. I just look at it as one of the goofy hyenas from Lion King has taken over. I don't completely disagree with you on that one. Putting over the Triple H era a lot on this show thus far, but I do think the lack of follow-up to the John Cena squash at Crown Jewel last year has impacted this somewhat. Yeah. And I think that Triple H is lucky that this storyline has gotten over to the degree that it has done, because he did bugger all work to make sure it was going to work.
Yeah, it was a shame that it wasn't followed up on in that regard. I also think that this is one where I'd say let it play out, but I wouldn't mean it in the same way as I'm like, I'm not sure whether or not I like that one, let it play out. This is one where I'm like, we're at the beginning of what I think is going to be a run that will showcase Solo in that mode. You don't need to buy it right now, but it's on the way.
Exactly. Absolutely, yeah. I kind of wish that they had made sure that Solo had that presentation so that once WrestleMania was finished, then him taking over would have just been like the next natural progression.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, we are sort of at step 1 when we could have been at step 10 already. Let's get into the rest of this show. Please do keep getting in your Ultrachats to WrestleTalk.com/support and join our live conversation as well. Press the subscribe button while you're at it if you've made it this far. Up next, controversial. It's my match of the night.
Ooh, lovely.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt, it was my match of the night.
Huge.
Tiffany Stratton versus Naomi versus Bayley for the WWE Women's Championship. This is how hot this crowd was. They liked Naomi's theme.
Oh my God, they gave Naomi such an entrance.
Well, it is very typical of Europe to like shit dance music. So they when she goes to Germany, crikey, like they're really going to go for it. But this crowd, man, was so good. But I thought Tiffany Stratton was incroyable in this match. I thought that she came across as this uber incredible megastar. Dave Meltzer said, and perhaps this is hyperbole, but he was like, she is like got the potential to be possibly the all-time greatest wrestler from North America, like a female wrestler from North America. Like, she was like, she's got at this stage of her career, she's got all of this. Just think what she can learn, and she has got absolutely everything. She has got, and to the point of, I'm pretty sure it's a different person every time she steps in the ring, because the way she does her makeup makes her look like she's a different person every time I see her.
She also sometimes has things where she's got a choker on, which makes her face shaped. It's a whole. I can tell you about this. This is costuming and makeup and all this stuff. I think she's absolutely exceptional. I think she's brilliant in the ring. I think she is at the beginning of her career, so I give her a lot of space for some of the more wooden performances, but even within the wooden deliveries is a little something,
absolutely,
a little soupçon.
There really is. I think she is fantastic. I thought and much like the crowd, this match was non-stop. And there was no room for breather. There was no one person goes to the outside and these two people, and if it does, that's just part of the interacting that they were doing. The three-way sequence they were doing at the start was just so, it was just awesome. I thought the three of these worked great. I thought Naomi was superb. Bayley, you want to talk about someone who was feeding off this energy. My girl Bayley was doing that to the nth degree. I loved this match. And Tiffany did her wonderful cartwheel Alabama slam that she does, which is just, it's mind-melting in how great it is. And she whacked Naomi into this announcer's table, right into the corner. It was so brutal. She then dragged Bayley out, did it to her as well. So great. And then she threw Naomi in the ring. She threw Bayley into the ring. And I was like, I think that might have been an error, Tiff. You should have just focused on one of them. And she went up to do the prettiest moonsault ever. Both Bayley and Naomi rolled out of the way. Tiff rolled through. She charged at them. And Naomi and Bayley did a 3D.
A 1D.
It's a 3D.
It was a 1D. Because she's in the bloodline. You call it
the
1D.
She's not in the bloodline.
She's married to Jimmy, ergo in the bloodline.
She's in the...
She's more in the bloodline than The Rock is.
The Rock's actually... Well, let's not get into this. We've got a whole video about this over on the WrestleTalk channel. You should go and check
That was me being very, very facetious, by the way.
But yeah, they hit the 3D.
Nia Jax's.
Yeah, they hit the 3D, and it was just awesome. A really, really great sequence. And then Bayley rolled up Naomi and got the win. My note here was, I was not ready for that to be over.
No, I agree.
I wanted more. And it's not as a negative of I wish there was... I genuinely, I wish I had 5 more minutes of that match because I was enjoying myself so much.
She's more in the bloodline than Tama Tonga is. There you go. That's where I was trying to find the one. It was Nia Jax's on that big spreadsheet that they put up at the press conference.
The Rock has said he's Uncle Haku.
Well, so this is it.
So he is blood in their terms.
She's married into the bloodline. Anyway, so I thought
when I said she's not in the bloodline, I meant the faction, not the family tree. Of course, she's part of the family tree. She's married into the family. She's not part of the faction.
Well, no, not yet. They still haven't added their one woman to the faction, which they do with every faction.
And they're not going to either.
No, they shouldn't. This was absolutely brilliant. I loved the pacing. I loved the energy. I loved the fact that, as you say, there was no moment to breathe. Like that kind of is. The first match. A loo break for the ad break, straight into this one. It was like, God, there's no rest. This is great. I was so, especially when there have been shows where we have kind of had, check my watch, whatever, be distracted by what's online.
Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, there wasn't that here. And I thought, in particular, there was a moment where with the Tiffy time and, everyone responding, I'm like, maybe you just bite the bullet and just go with the emotion of the crowd and things like that. I think they are doing something really interesting with Bayley's character. I thought, again, because we're not doing a SmackDown review, the stuff with Bianca on SmackDown was real tasty. There's a great account on X, formerly Twitter, which is, I think it's called, I'm butchering it, but it's like Myth GIF Wrestling. Basically just posts threads of GIFs and moments, and one of their stories with Sami Zayn bringing out the Brainbuster at WrestleMania and how he found himself.
Everybody botched that move.
and other ones with Kevin Owens and the thing that they did a looped GIF and pointed out a really effective bit of storytelling, which is Bayley and Bianca tagging together. Bianca doesn't trust Bayley in any way, shape, or form. Deservedly so.
Nor should she.
And Bayley doesn't trust hot tags anymore because Bayley's last hot tag was Dakota
Kai.
Exactly. So it was a really interesting moment. They obviously keep having their sort of headbutt things, but Naomi trusts Bayley. And there was something in the way this match ended where Bayley gets the quick roll up, just manages to get it. And I agree, it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. I was a little bit like, oh, was that meant to happen? And then when I watched it back, I was like, oh yes, this is fine. Naomi doesn't even go to kick out. There was something in the moment where I was like, oh, is Naomi about to turn heel on Bayley? Oh no, she's just going to give her a cuddle. A hug to Bayley. Bayley continues this journey of sort of realizing that she has got people who have her back. She can be a good person. She is the girl we know she is. I thought that was super effective. And yeah, maybe there's something about taking Tiffany and giving her a run sooner rather than later. You want to strike while the iron's hot.
I think she's going to win the title this year.
Yeah.
And I think deservedly so.
Or a Queen of the Ring situation as well.
Yeah, I would 100% put her in Queen of the Ring.
Yeah.
I mean, having her win Money in the Bank, giving her a big bejeweled, bedazzled Money in the Bank, I think has got so much mileage to it. I think the sky is the limit for Tiffany Stratton. I think she is going to be fantastic.
And all three of them are great. And I really hope, I'm still holding out a mini hope of a return of the Bayley Buddies in Glasgow. That's what I'm after. And it's almost like this is part of the story that we felt, certainly I felt, a bit let down by at WrestleMania.
Absolutely 100%.
It now feels like, with what I'm seeing them do, and I'm incredibly frustrated they're not putting her on posters for stuff, but I am almost now willing to accept that maybe that was Act 1 of this Bayley redemption story.
Yeah.
Because Bayley's so special to me. Like, I had this conversation last night while I was watching it. She said, this is not a unique position, but she's so special to me because as a fan of women's wrestling my whole life, and as a fan of women's wrestlers my whole life, to see them start to get more attention and respect from crowds and earn that through their work. When I think of her program with Sasha, and then when I think about what she did as women's champion, it is, to this day, probably will end up one of the biggest regrets of my life that I had a ticket to NXT London and didn't go out of fear of being somewhere on my own because my other mate couldn't come. I will forever regret not being there for that moment. And I think she has such a special connection with the crowd. And I think I would love to see her. She was mishandled is the worst euphemism for what happened to her on the main roster. I think Vince just didn't get it. I don't know.
100% he didn't get it.
He didn't get any of them,
and I think there's a reason why he didn't get it.
Yeah, me too. I think Triple H sees in Bayley what we all saw in Bayley. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that this will continue to be a sort of fantastic run for her. And if it ends at Glasgow with Bayley Buddies, I will be a happy little boy.
Bayley, there's a reason why I was my girl Bayley, because I have got that connection with Bayley. Well, when I was a teenager, as a teenage boy, no less, you weren't really supposed to like the women wrestling because the products didn't like the women's wrestling. The show didn't like women's wrestling. Like, they were just there to be ogled at. And as a teenage boy, you're like, well, fine, if that's what I'm supposed to do, then that is what I will do then. But I was a big fan of Lita and I was a big fan of Trish. But it wasn't like I was excited to see their matches because the show was telling me, don't be excited about these matches. TNA was the company that really changed my mind on that when they started presenting women wrestling as something that you should watch and actually take seriously, something that took WWE 10 years later to actually start to implement. And that's when I got into, like, Awesome Kong became like my first favorite female wrestler. Like, the first person I was like, I would buy her merchandise. So really, like, Bayley and Becky Lynch were like my first two favorite women wrestlers in WWE, where I'm like, actively, I want to see
I'll lean forward.
I'm going to lean forward. You're announced for a match. I'm tuning into that show because I want to see that match.
Yeah. I also feel like there's a really interesting conversation happening at the minute about, like, because you know, what you said there about you were told to ogle the women, and there was something like that. There's a really interesting conversation happening with, like, Zoe Stark and a few other people online talking about why we always have to show our asses. Becky kind of brought it up in the Rhea storyline as well. Equality is about being able to have both. Right.
Of course it is.
Really, equality. It's not saying, like, look, I mean, I see Beefcake Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes come out with this lovely tan, and I thirst a little bit over them as well. There's no shame in being a bit horny.
Have you seen how good AJ looks at the moment?
Drew is another one. Like,
Drew, absolutely.
I'm sorry, this is a show full of beautiful people in very little clothing. Like, it's so there's nothing wrong with, you know, finding Naomi hot when she stands on the apron and does a little jiggle.
Yeah.
But she's also someone who wrestles, is respecting her work as well. I like that there's sort of Zoe Stark can dress in her, that she made a point of it in the Hall of Fame, to the point where I'm now wondering whether it will be a part of a character for her going forward. I'm just really, that's ultimately what it's about. It's about respecting the work and giving them the time and giving them the space to do what they did in this match, which is electrify a crowd and show us what they've got. Should
say as well, actually, not to demonize WWE. So, like, when I was a fan, as a teenage fan, pop culture in general.
Oh yeah, Nuts Magazine, Zoom Magazine.
Absolutely. Of course it was. Yeah, like I was a victim of that. And now that I'm an older and slightly more wise man, I'm not going to say fully more wise man, I now see what I was sort of like conditioned to, and now appreciate that was wrong.
Yeah.
And I've changed my tune to that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we can now have these, like, okay, great example of this is Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton would have been hired in 2005 WWE because she looks the way that she does.
When they took over NXT 2.0.
She was there.
John Laurinaitis literally with a fucking catalogue.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is like she was that sort of the beauty model, the fitness model, the implants, the this, that, and the other. But she is also someone who is an incredible wrestler as well. So it's not like when you were in 2006 when they were just hiring fitness models, throwing them out there on live TV and like, have a 2-minute match now, and they just bollocks up every single thing that they try to do. We're now in an era where, like you said, you can be the fitness model look, but also the incredible wrestler at the same time. And I love that we are living in that world.
It's just about respect.
And of course it is. And I respect the hell out of Tiffany Stratton because I think she is the future of this industry.
Hey, it's Tiffy time, and the time is now.
It is Tiffy time, but she'll never be my girl Bailey. In, I would say, our only real 2-star match elevated to a 5-star match because of the crowd was Jey Uso versus Damien Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. Jey Uso's entrance, man, was something else.
Did the people in front of him not know that he was behind them? I thought, because they were filming the entrance, and I'm like, guys, turn around. Tap him on the shoulder and let him know he's turning around. Jay's right there. They were like doing this ahead of them, and I'm like, guys,
he's behind you.
Because the screen doesn't show them. It's just got the name Jey Uso on it.
We needed some more like pantomime thing of he's behind you. I think this was a match that was carried by the crowd. There was the usual Judgment Day interference, though Damien Priest was sort of having a go at Finn Balor and JD McDonough for trying to help. But in the end, it was JD that did help Priest because Jey hit his spear and the splash, and JD put Priest's foot on the ropes, and then Jey took out JD and Finn Balor at ringside, and Priest hit him with the South of Heaven from the middle rope and got the win. And then afterwards, Balor and JD tried to beat down Jey some more, and Priest kind of pulled them off, grabbed Balor by like the cheeks to be like, no, we're just going to celebrate my victory.
Yeah. It was almost a tale of two halves because Jey's presentation at the beginning was so electric. It was great. This is why he's in the spot, right? This is why he's been given the sort of like green light, thumbs up as you can be this moment, this challenger.
You're on new Cody Rhodes.
Meanwhile, Priest comes out, and I want to call out Priest and Grayson Waller because they're both holding a belt too low. Hold it high on your shoulder and hold it proud. They both look like, you know, I've got a weird stickler, and I take all criticism of this for the way people hold belts. It's whatever. But there was something about his music, even the whole presentation of him doesn't feel big time notified. And yet I think he is. I think he's got such potential, Priest, in the way that he looks. That styling of him at the press conference at Mania with the glasses and the hair, and like, even though I always talk about Sunday Brunch, they had a clip show before this match of Priest at various events. He's got big time aura, but for some reason at the beginning I wasn't enthused.
I think it's on WWE. I think, again, much like I said, they're lucky that Solo is as good as he is, that they had him lose 41 times between beating John Cena and taking over the Bloodline, that it doesn't matter anymore and he can kind of overcome that. I think the same thing, they're lucky that Damien Priest has the aura that he has. He has the aura of being a world champion without WWE's help of making him feel like he's the world champion. And they definitely feel less than to the other world championship on. Both of the world champions feels so mid-card. I said this on Denise's show when I did Denise Salcedo's show before WrestleMania. My worry about Damien Priest cashing in at this point is that it will feel like Jack Swagger cashing in. Yeah. Which is just like, oh, this mid-card guy is now the world champion. And that devalues the belt somewhat. And it did devalue the World Heavyweight Championship. And I kind of feel that Damien Priest is just this mid-card guy. And it doesn't help that he's wrestling mid-card Jey Uso either, who sort of we're being told is the top babyface on Raw, but he sure doesn't feel like it when he's wrestling. People like Yeet, but when he wrestles, the crowd aren't invested in his matches, and we saw that at WrestleMania. We saw that in the Jimmy match. There was something about last summer with the briefcase in the Judgment Day while Balor was going for the belt. I was very high on the idea of like telling that story of the world title within the same faction as the briefcase. That they could have done something really interesting with that, but I think they stalled on it a lot, and now we're at the point where we are getting the same sort of
Judgment Day runs Monday Night War and I run Monday Night Raw, and I run the Judgment Day. That was a hard sentence to say. But this is the same thing that's been happening for sort of over a year, so I found it frustrating. However, I thought the work in the match was genuinely quite good. I thought that Priest yelling, like, rise, this whole business of, like, rather than being like, get up, him yelling rise, there was something a little bit different about that I quite responded to. And I'm looking at his, like, snarling face and his physical presence and his demeanor, and I'm like, oh, you do have buckets of potential, especially when he's got the ability to pull the singlet down, which for me is a favorite thing. I love when Maxie Dupree did it on Raw. I lost my proverbial. And then the crowd really elevating this match to the point where I legitimately got caught up in the rope break near fall when I'm like, well, hang on, you've just hit a super kick, a spear, and a splash. You've won it. Are they just going to take are they just going to do it? They're just going to belt up Jey? Oh, and I like really like, whoa, I was kind of nervous. My heart was pounding. I was like, how have I got into this, which started bland, and bland is mean fine. It started fine.
Yes, it was fine.
That became good and was elevated into great. And then the post-match business of Priest getting in Balor's face in the middle of the match, where it's like, I didn't tell you to come out, holding his face, you stand there, I'm celebrating, I'm done, don't beat up Jey Uso, you don't need to beat Jey Uso up. All of that performance was so more effective than any stilted delivery backstage segment in Judgment Day's lair could ever be. So I'm like, again, there's a nugget of potential here. There's something we can play with. It's just the presentation of it isn't working, so they need to look at a different avenue.
Presentation is absolutely key to it. And I think it is the same with Jey. I think that Jey has got the potential to be main event Jey Uso. I think he has the potential to be a top guy, but WWE's presentation of him does a disservice to him. And I think they could have done better presentation of Jey Uso going into this match to make him feel like he is a world title contender, in the same token of making Damien Priest feel like a world title holder. I think the same thing of AJ Styles. AJ's like one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I don't think that WWE did enough presentation to make it look like he's an actual credible threat to Cody Rhodes' world championship. It is on WWE in the presentation of these wrestlers to make them feel bigger. And I don't think they are accomplishing that with Jey Uso at the moment. But Jey Uso is heading back to the Bloodline. And it's going to be the biggest thing in WWE this year. So he has got... It doesn't matter that this match was fine. And it doesn't matter that the Jimmy match was very lackluster. By his own standards, by his own words, Jey Uso said that match was not very good. I'm sort of paraphrasing, but he did say we let the fans down with that match. So he's going to be going back to the Bloodline. They're going to have their War Games match, and it's going to be awesome. He's going to have a great 2024. I just think that WWE could do much more with the singles run.
I agree.
And speaking of presentation, this is actually one of my... People often say, like, what are your like bugbears in wrestling, that like a proper like nitpicky thing that you hate and it doesn't actually really matter? Here's mine. Champs coming out first.
Yeah.
Because this match told you everything you need to know about what WWE really think of Kabuki Warriors as the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, which is they came out first and then the stars came out to win those tag belts, because we actually don't really care about this tag team. If they did, they would have come out second. Every other champ came out second and was presented as a big star. Kabuki Warriors came out so they could do an ad read.
Right.
And I think that... present your champions as something special.
Especially when your champions are Asuka and Kairi Sane.
Right? Like, give Bianca and Jade the big presentation as well, because the Power Buff Girls are awesome. But
that's again not official.
But you should. Oh man, I thought that was my...
No, there's a few. I'm sorry, mate.
Damn it.
We're all... It's a hive mind at this stage.
I mean, it's fair. It was actually it was low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But I thought I was really clever when I came over that this morning. But what was I saying? Yeah, like, you should give them the big presentation because they do have that aura and that superstar presence about them. But you should do the same with your champions as well.
Yeah.
And they looked like... The second that they came out first and they did the ad read, I was like, there ain't no way they're retaining these tag belts.
I mean, I didn't think there was a way they were retaining them clean anyway.
So I predicted it in Wrestle League that they weren't winning, but like, you then telegraphed it.
I agree with
before the match even started, that these people don't actually matter. It's just these people that do.
Yeah, which is a shame, because as I say, it's Kairi and Asuka are two wrestlers who I have a huge amount of of time, but even if Kairi's work since her return hasn't been as, she's been a bit bumpy. She's been finding her way back into the fold of WWE and the style WWE has, because there wasn't any NXT run. It was just go right back in. So it has been a little bit bumpy. Asuka's one of my favorites forever. And I was really glad then, because all of that's correct, that during this match, they got time to showcase some of what they do, some of the double team stuff that they've always been really good at. Because there's been flashes, there's been glimpses, there's been moments of that in this Damage Control run, but never really enough time or space, or perhaps even opponents, to really let go on that. So like the strike back and forth that they've been having with Jade in the middle or Bianca in the middle and just battering them was really good. Just even down to them wearing similar gear. Similar gear. When Jade and Bianca came out wearing the same gear, I was enamored. I was so happy with all of that.
Again, it's that presentation thing of like, you're lucky that they're as good as they are, because you not helping them feel like stars, they're stars when they step into the ring and actually wrestle.
Exactly. It was a shame then that in the middle of this match, it turned into a hot mess.
Yeah, so what happened was Kairi Sane, I'm going to guess, was the legal person, or maybe she wasn't, but I don't know really who is fully to blame here. I'd say it's probably the referee, but Kairi Sane went to go for a pin, and the referee said, Kairi, you can't do that. You're not the legal wrestler. And Michael Cole and Corey Graves were like, great call by the referee. Kairi is not the legal competitor. She shouldn't be going for the pin. But she had to do that spot, because then she was supposed to transition into an armbar, and then Asuka was going to put Bianca in the armbar so they could do the powerbomb spots. So Kairi then just goes into that next move, and the referee's like, Kairi, you can't tap her out either. You're not the legal wrestler. So Kairi then walks over to Asuka and tags Asuka, who is actually already the legal wrestler. And the referee goes, tag! And so then it's just like, and so then they have to get back, and Asuka has to do some stuff with Jade, and then tag Kairi back in, so they can just repeat the spot they were about to do anyway. This match fell apart for a full 3 minutes, and I think it is a testament to how hot WWE is right now that this is not a bigger talking point. In any other era, 5 years ago, people would have had huge rants about this online. WWE is the worst place in the world. They've got no wrestlers. There's no training. Jade's green. Blah, blah, blah. WWE's so hot right now. They're just like, oh, that was a shame. And the match got back. And I think that's a credit to how hot the company is right now, which I find endlessly fascinating.
I think that is if I may, what's the word? For me, it's credit to Jade and Bianca and Kairi and Asuka. They got back into it. Like, I think that is something that fully derails a moment, personally. And I think to say it's just that the WWE is hot, rather than it's on their level of working together and communicating. I think it's a work.
To counter your point, I'm talking about this exact same moment. If you'd have done this, if this had happened 5 years ago, even with the four of them working and getting everything back on track, the conversation would have been, that was completely bollocks, and WWE is bollocks, and they bollocks that up, and this is bad. Ignoring the fact that the four of them then worked hard to get the match back on track, because that was the conversation of what WWE was at that period of time.
The thing that it reminded me of was Mickie James's weird moment where the ref just tapped her out or whatever. Like, do you remember she had a women's title match? It was like her last women's title match or something in like 2020. It was a Thunderdome match.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was against Asuka, and for some reason that she was held in the Asuka lock and she hadn't tapped yet, and the ref calls for the bell, and she's like, why? I think it was because she was selling an injury too well or something like that, and it was a complete ref fumble. The same thing happened here. This was, you had your thing about the presentation of the championships, peeling back the curtain, and maybe this is a sentence that they're going to use and bite me in the ass and undercut all of my potential good faith or whatever that I've got as an analyst. I don't care who's the legal man in this context. I don't care. I was
the rules matter, Dan.
The rules do matter.
Hold the tag ropes when you're doing your tags as well while I'm at it.
The rules do matter, and I do appreciate it, but I hadn't noticed who was and wasn't legal in this moment. So I don't care. I didn't care. And it really frustrated me that there comes a point in tag matches where I'm like, if I'm really feeling it, if I'm really involved, in that moment, is it the worst thing in the world if you do a quick 2 count for Kairi Sane?
Absolutely not.
So now it's all about suspension of disbelief. My disbelief was suspended. My disbelief was brought into sharp relief with this tag, and then Asuka's the legal man, and then because at that point you've stopped me from caring. So then they bring her back in to the point where when we get the final sequence, and what a final sequence it was, they've had to. That's why I was saying about their work, because they've earned my belief back, right? It really got on my nerves. Really, really got on my nerves. It was a hot mess. And I didn't care that Kairi wasn't legal. Sorry. Look, apologies to the rules books.
Honestly, Dan, I'm kind of with you.
Yeah.
Like I will do my whole pretense of like the rules matter and the legal man, this, that, and the other. But like I like Young Bucks tag matches, and it's not like they're all. It's not like if I watch a PWG show, everyone's adhering to the 5-second rule before you have to get back out of the ring, and they were doing it in this match as well. And the commentators being like, "Referee, do something!" Like she's got 5 to get out of the ring, and the referee's just not doing it. It makes the referee look like incompetent. And
the referee, the referee shouldn't be seen. I know that sounds stupid, but the referees...
That's quite key to being a referee.
Yeah, they want to blend in. They want to be there in the moment. If it's necessary for a ref bump or a "you get out of here" moment, they should be part of it. Jessica Carr being the first woman to referee a WWE title match is a big deal. But then she sort of fed into the background and was just a person in a zebra shirt. That's what a ref should do.
Yeah.
The ref here became the story, and it didn't work.
I don't know exactly who it was to blame in this moment. I feel like it was the ref, because the ref should have just done the moments, because they then had to... I think it kind of made Kairi look bad because she then transitioned into the next spot. And then it made the referee look like a doofus because she then went and tagged out to Asuka, who you just told me was the legal person.
It made them all look stupid.
It made everyone look bad.
And then to the point where when we do get to the end and the champs are holding their belts up high, you could see Jade there was a lot of communication going on. I saw Bianca listening at one point to the ref and then communicating it to the others and whatever. You could see Jade sort of apologize and she kept pulling Bianca into a hug and saying something in her ear. And there was a point where the camera caught Bianca going, "It's okay, it's okay." And I'm like, yeah, it's
fine.
Yeah,
it is fine.
Ultimately, it worked.
Ultimately, it's fine. And that's the point I was making earlier about 5 years ago, this would have been a bigger deal. Now, it actually doesn't matter. Because everything else on the show, back in the day, so using my 5 years ago analogy, the whole show was full of negative ones. So if you've got all these negative ones that are going on, they build up. So when you have a blown spot like this, you're just like, it's just another naff thing that was on the show that was also full of bad creative decisions. But this was a show that had an incredible crowd, really good creative decisions, and great wrestling. So when you have one blown spot, it's not a big deal.
Especially when you follow it up with what was one of the... I watched it about 6 times. One of the most impressive athletic feats I've seen in certainly women's tag wrestling in WWE, but for a long time.
Jade's very, very good at that, because she did that spot with Sky Blue in AEW, which is that Kairi leaps and Jade catches her into a powerbomb. She then flips her around so that she's in like how I carry my kid to the shops, where you on the shoulders, and then you throw her up in the air and you catch her immediately into your finish of Jaded, and then you hit the move.
And that's as much on Kairi as well.
Of course it is. In the same way it was as much on Sky Blue.
Yeah, the strength, the athleticism. Stop both siding this. It's not about AEW. But it is like it's about working together, and then the KOD, the double team stuff that they had as well. I put over the Kabuki Warriors, but also Jade and Bianca. They've got some really interesting double team stuff. I just love seeing them. They're so dominant. I love this for Bianca in this moment. I love this for Jade in this moment. Hot mess of a match that they managed to pull back, and I'm fascinated by what this division is going to be now.
I'm sorry, and to get my phone out, it's just that I just saw someone there saying, like, why don't you do more of an Indian food analogy, Luke, if you want to get your points across?
Can I go to the bathroom?
No. The only reason I wanted to do that is because I actually got an email in from Nishant, who is a restaurant owner from Mumbai, and said, I'm just trying to tell you the correct pronunciation of your favorite dish is paneer tikka dansik. Not because I keep saying tikka paneer dansak. It's actually paneer.
It would be chicken tikka masala, like paneer tikka.
Yeah. And he just wanted to correct me. It's paneer tikka dansak, not tikka paneer dansak. So thank you very much for that correction.
I went to the gym and I haven't eaten yet, and I'm really hungry. Can you stop talking about food?
Well, that's good. Well, did you not get anything from the
No, the queues were too long, and I had to come. It's Cinco de Mayo, so there's a Mexican market across the way from the office, and I went to have a look, and the queues were so big.
I had the most amazing cactus tacos.
Good for you.
Oh, they were delicious.
I bet they were.
They were really, really good. So then we got to our main event. I don't think we actually said, but Jade and Bianca won the tag belts.
Yeah,
of course they were. That was pretty much a foregone conclusion. As was our main event of Cody Rhodes defending the title against AJ Styles, the WWE Championship that was. Shout out to AJ Styles wearing purple, the same color that he wore when he faced Dusty Rhodes when he defended the NWA Championship against him.
And Cody's jacket was the same color scheme as Dusty's. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a really nice touch. It didn't stop me from making a Judgment Day AJ Styles joke. Because he was wearing purple and
That's
black.
fair. That was very clever.
But then some people replied to me being like, actually, it's this. And I was like, I know, it was a joke.
My favorite spot early doors of this was Cody Rhodes doing the AJ drop kick.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, that's a really nice touch actually.
Yeah.
Did the cartwheel and the Stardust thing. I think this was the only match on the show where you could make the argument that the songs took over the match itself, because I thought this was a proper wrestling main event wrestling match.
It was incredible.
It was a superb near half-hour wrestling match.
Yeah,
it was when I mean main event, this was main event wrestling. It's a very specific style, and Cody is awesome at it, and AJ is one of the best to ever do it. So they two had an incredible main event wrestling match, and it was awesome. But there was a moment when this crowd were not getting along with the 2 counts and the near falls that they were setting up and the double downs and stuff. They were just singing their song because they had a phenomenal song. They were singing about AJ Styles, and they were busting that out every single opportunity they got. It almost felt like this was a crowd that the second they felt the energy started to die, I was like, quickly sing another song. Because we need, we're so close to the end now. We can keep this energy up all the way to the end.
Seriously, I just fundamentally disagree with you on that.
I'm saying this is the only match where you could make that argument.
Oh, I thought you said you did feel that way, because I didn't. I thought it complimented it massively, and I actually thought
Did you not hear the rant I went on at the start of the show about Brit wrestling?
You said in this match.
In this match, this is the argument you could make that the songs did overtake the match itself.
I'm not making that argument. I disagree with that argument, because for me, it was something that was really interesting in terms of like, if I thought AJ sold it really well. He almost sold it like he was getting annoyed by it. They certainly sold it that way the night before on SmackDown, and it derailed his promo, and it derailed what they were trying to achieve. And I was worried about that. And in fact, at the end of SmackDown, I was like, oh, and I was, what are they singing and what is it? And I was like, oh, it's this. It is because of Phenomenal. If he was a babyface, this actually would be electric, but he's not. How is that going to impact the match? And then to see throughout the match, yes, they did sing it a lot, but they also chanted Stardust. They also chanted This is awesome. They also chanted every chant in a French accent is way better. They chanted for Cody. They chanted for AJ. They chanted for everything. So I didn't feel like it detracted in any way. I thought it added an extra layer of intensity to it, because everything else you've said about this being a main event wrestling match is dead on the money. This was exceptional stuff. Mm-hmm. I loved it.
It's what I was saying in my rant earlier about American criticisms of Brit wrestling fans not getting matches over or making matches feel like they're over. I think that the songs do make matches feel more over. I think there was I would only say there was one period in this match where they weren't counting the near falls. That was the only moment where I thought, this is a crowd that are doing the songs more than they are doing the match itself. But it was only in a probably a 2-minute stretch of this 27-minute match. So I wouldn't say that it overtook the entire match.
I didn't even notice.
And that's why I would say you could make the argument. It's not an argument I would agree with.
Yeah, I also just thought, to talk about the match itself, the sheer quality of the pair of them, this had the potential to go AJ Nakamura.
Yeah, it is AJ in WWE, so yes, I could see that. Yeah,
but AJ Nakamura, WrestleMania 34.
Yes, that's what I mean. But like, because AJ in WWE, who is not AJ Styles of 2004, is a slower wrestler now. And when they did that Mania 34 match, it was coming off the back of like one of the greatest wrestling matches to ever happen up until that point from Wrestle Kingdom, and then they had a very slow, boring
different version, yeah.
And it wasn't even a different version. It was just a CAC version.
I meant a different version of each of them, yeah.
Yeah.
This had the potential to be something where I'm like salivating, I'm really excited, and then it didn't deliver. This, I thought, was a massive over-delivery almost. Certainly from expectations, to believe at various points in what they were trying to sell us. And any argument from... It was really funny. I was texting someone who was telling me that other people that we know just call Cody boring and say he's a dreadful wrestler and he's an awful person, awful wrestler.
Okay, well, you're gonna.
I'll tell you off air.
Yeah.
But so I was jokingly the whole way through. I was texting being like, "Ugh, what an ugly drop kick. Ugh, what a bad brainbuster. Like, oh, it's so bad. One of the worst, dreadful. One of the worst wrestling matches I've ever seen." Because it just kept coming. It just kept being this kind of like when you are a new champion and this idea of we have to start a new story. It's now Cody's turn to hold the belt, and Cody's turn to the first defense is almost the hardest. You know, you've got to get over that. To do this match in that context, I think is absolutely fantastic. I think there was a shame it was a story that only went 2 weeks, really.
They can, they can continue on.
They can continue on, but
Cody did feud with Brock Lesnar for 6 months.
He absolutely did. But when you think, this is the other thing, when I think back to like what he did in 2023, matches with Dominic, a sort of bland feud with Nakamura, a feud with Brock that was 2 good matches. Yeah,
I'd say 2 good matches.
But took ages, and they gave us a really romantic video for no reason. Like and then the tag feud I enjoyed very much, the tag title run. So there's an element of like, oh, I haven't seen Cody do this in a while with someone who I consider to be like really at his equal in a way. There was something really it was proper wrestling. It was proper like back and forth.
They were both proper wrestling.
They were on each other's level. They had a counter and a for everyone's other move. Like they were so evenly matched, and I was really into it for 27 full minutes. I've watched it twice. I think it's one of the matches of the year, WWE.
I think so. I thought this was really, really great. I mean, as I said, I got the women's triple threat for me was my match of the night, because I absolutely adored that match. But that's not to take anything away from this match, because this match was exceptional main event pro wrestling.
If you want to say why Cody Rhodes has the belt on, it's one thing for the crowd singing his song and insisting that they finish the song when the music is finished. It's a whole other thing. Like the cheer he got on SmackDown when he was shown on the screen. He's the biggest star in the company.
Of course he is.
He's the biggest star in
Absolutely
wrestling.
He is.
Because if you're the biggest star in the biggest company, you are the biggest
star. The biggest
star.
Absolutely he is.
And then he backs it up with a match like that. This is fantastic.
And like so my expectations going into this match, I don't think were as potentially as high as yours. As we talked about this on the prediction show, like my expectations of the match was like, well, it's a full conclusion that Cody's winning. I don't think that's a problem because it's your first world title defense. But they've not built up AJ to feel like he could even be a credible world challenger. He'd lost at the last pay-per-view. You haven't built AJ to be this, but AJ's one of my favorites, and Cody always brings it, so they're going to have a great match. They actually exceeded those expectations I had, which were just like, I think these are 2 incredible wrestlers who will feed off an incredible energy, and they will have a great match. I thought they were 2 incredible wrestlers who fed off an incredible energy and put on an incredible match.
It's so
interesting.
And
I thought they were really, really great.
It's so interesting to have that, almost that conversation about just enjoy wrestling or like put on a heatless banger or whatever, and that kind of is to an extent what they did here. Something in other things where it's like, well, like, are you going to enjoy the match because it's just 2 really good wrestlers? Sometimes isn't enough for me, and it wasn't here either. That's why I call it an over delivery, because I was like, yeah, it's going to be good. It's a good first defense for Cody, but there's a chance that it doesn't deliver. There's a chance that it's just a match that happens and then we move on. I thought it was really important to hit the ground running with this, and they did it absolutely fantastically between the bells where it really counts, which is obviously not to say it doesn't count elsewhere. And that's why I wish that they'd done more with the fact that he wrestled his dad for the world title 20 years ago. I wish they'd done more with the fact that they both were Bullet Club leaders. Stop talking. I wish they'd done more with the parallel careers thing. I wish that the segment that didn't fully land, because when on SmackDown, AJ did the Stardust thing, and that's why Cody did it in his face, and there's the great close up where AJ's like, "You mother!" Like, I loved all of that stuff. I just wish they'd done more with it.
Absolutely, presentation,
and that's where you get this mix of great between the bells, but you need the story as well. That said, just exceptional match.
A superb wrestling match this was, and you said this in the prediction show. And I do agree with you. I wish they had made more of the Dusty thing, because there is, the live chat might be able to correct me on this. I think there's only really 2 people that can do it. It can say, I have had a match with Dusty Rhodes that are still active to this day. Because you're right, like a lot of people could be like, I was Dusty's favorite kid. I was Dusty's favorite promo. I was Dusty's this, that, and the other when he was a trainer in NXT. AJ literally defended a world title against Dusty Rhodes. And the only other person I can think of is Dolph. Obviously, Dolph's not in the company anymore, But the Spirit Squad wrestled the Legends at Survivor Series 06, and Dusty was in that match. So Dolph and Dusty have had a match. I think
that's different from the AJ thing, though, isn't it?
Well, it's very different from the AJ thing. That's what I mean. Is and Dolph's not in the company anymore. So AJ's really the only guy you've got that can have that connection that no other person can do.
And I feel like
imagine trying to get into Cody's head. You didn't even wrestle your dad.
Yeah.
But I did, and I beat him.
I think that's another reason I think of this match as being so good, by the way, is when I think about AJ wrestling.
Orton. Orton had a match with him, apparently. of course he did. The Legend Killer. Yeah.
But even when I think about, I was trying to think of Orton is... I'm glad that they brought up Orton, because when AJ's wrestling at this caliber, for me, I mean, I know it's not, super moonsaults over the ropes, or maybe even what he was able to do in Japan, because it's 2024 and the match with Dusty would have been literally 20 years ago when he was a 20-year younger man with 20 years less wrestling and bumps and travel. He's still wrestling at a fantastic level. He's still really putting in a shift
when he needs to. Because I thought his match with LA Knight over-delivered.
Yeah.
In terms of the level of hype and excitement had going into it, but this match did the exact same thing.
And it's almost like how sort of lucky it is, and when I do think Cody needs to move on from Dusty Rhodes in a weird way. I know you shouldn't and you can't, but there's something about, okay, well, at some point he's going to have a feud that's not Dusty doesn't get brought up, because I want him to exist in his own way, and this is one of those rare feuds where actually you could kind of make something kind of separate and about it. So maybe they will again. I don't know who his next opponent would be, but for what it was, I just was enamored, and I'm going to watch it again. I wonder if they didn't do the AJ Dusty stuff because they'll save it for Randy. Because they'll probably do Cody Randy going into the summer. Yeah. So Orton being the Legend Killer. They've got their own history that's got nothing to do, like legacy. Yeah, which you can also dive into. See, maybe they didn't want to do it with the AJ thing because you want to save it for Randy. And probably it's more impactful for Randy because it happened within WWE. That's true. So, you could probably save it for that. But anyway, I gave the show 4 out of 5. Yeah, it was a really, really good show. I mean, I'd say, okay, I thought this was a good show, elevated to a great show by the crowd. It was a massive thumbs up for me. I don't usually do this. I'd go and watch it again. Often I just watch the show the one time. Mm-hmm. I've watched parts of the show multiple times. I'll be watching Backlash France probably in about 6 months. Could you please start the rest of our chats, because we don't have a mod mother here. So, okay. I've got I'll do that. So Kevin says, by the way, if you want to get any Ultra Chats, we'll read all of them out over the $5 amount before the end of the show. Kevin has done just that and says, as the resident French SWAF Nation member, I have to applaud my fellow French people for the incredible atmosphere last night. I hope you had as much fun watching it as I did. If Backlash becomes the international event every year, I'm up for it. Definitely a way of avoiding that post-WrestleMania slump. Well, we had this exact chat in, not obviously from this person, but when they did it in Puerto Rico last year, being like, you should do Backlash in Puerto Rico every year. Well, get the tourism board to pay for it then, because you've got to remember, WWE only do these shows because they're paid to do them. So if you want these to become a annual thing, you need to go to your tourism board and get them to pony up the money to do it. WWE don't actually have an interest in doing it. They want to be paid to do it. I think both can be true. I think they can have an interest in doing it and realize that there's a good business strategy. Benny Boy 004. I love Cody and AJ, but a 1 count for a burning hammer had my inner Tempest losing it. I know, because Pete hates 1 count kickouts. I do too usually. But I really like him. Yeah, I don't love him. I love a 1 count kick out. Ben Blair at that point in a match. Ben Valeric says, Bonjour, monsieur. One of the best crowds ever. You can tell how much it means for those who rarely get any WWE shows. I myself am going to my first ever wrestling show when WWE comes to Belgium in August. Granted, it's only a house show. Doubt it'll sell out, because who in Belgium even knows WWE? Hell, who even knows about Belgium? Me. I love Belgium. Know about Belgium. Mate, Belgium. I mean, we are European, so yeah. But for me, it's a dream come true. 27 now, been a fan since I was 10. WWE's been a few times before pandemic, but finally I'm old enough and got the money to go. Crowd won't be even close as loud as Leon, but I'll damn sure be screaming my lungs out. See, that's what you get when you go places that you've been rarely, if ever, before. I'm super glad WWE is doing this and hope AEW eventually will too. Anyway, sorry for rambling. My friends and family don't care about wrestling, so I was dying to tell somebody about my excitement. Therefore, I'm grateful for WrestleTalk and its community. Next goal is to visit the UK and maybe attend a WrestleTalk watch party. I think you'd be surprised. I think this European tour in the lead up to Bash at Berlin will probably be a massive sellout. The UK tour was electric.
So, fun fact,
couldn't get a ticket.
Fun fact about the UK tour is that wrestlers won't even allow comps.
Yeah.
And usually they're allowed to, bring friends and family and get them tickets and stuff. And you allotted a certain amount of comps to, that's what floor seaters are. There was this stupid article that was published last week about AEW used floor fillers at their most recent shows. I was like, yeah, every show uses floor fillers. That is a standard within all wrestling shows. But they won't allow comps. There were no comps available because it was like, no, we've sold it. We've sold too many tickets.
Yeah.
We've sold too many tickets. There's too much press coming. We can't allow you to bring your friend. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think the tour is going to be off the chain. I think you're going to have a great time.
And you've
chosen a really good time for your first show.
House shows as well are so much fun.
Yeah,
so you will have a great time. Obviously, do come to the UK, but obviously we've got issues with our WrestleTalk parties due to locations and TNT Sports deciding not to show their WWE pay-per-views in commercial properties at the moment. So keep an eye on that one. Still come to the UK, though. We have great wrestling over here. JLL says, absolutely amazing show. USA has been put to shame. What do you think about Jade? I noticed a few moments where she sort of seemed lost in the ring, but her last move on Sane was a highlight for me. Bloody epic. That's Jade Cargill in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. Gotta remember, Jade Cargill's had not a lot of matches. She just hasn't. She's only started wrestling 3 years ago. So gotta give her time. She's been put into an incredibly high level position, but being a tag team with Bianca, that's an incredibly smart business move.
Massively smart.
Because she can just work the house show loops with Bianca and learn. That's what they do with a lot of people who are green.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to use that word too much because look at me. It's not like I'm going to go in there and know what I'm doing. But the argument was people who are green, you put them in a tag team somewhere. Did it with Amos. Mm-hmm. You tagged Amos with AJ and it's Amos just learned from this man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she's got everything. Mm-hmm. And I actually think she's not. I didn't really get a sense of her being lost so much as I did. She's so big and the Kabuki Warriors are so small and quick that there's something about just finding the rhythm, and that's what the house show circuit's for, exactly.
Clayton, who's been a member for 15 months, said, as an American fan, US shows feel like any other show. International shows feel like an event you need to go to. Absolutely. Mayor of Painesville, Dan, says, hi, Luke. Hi, Dan. Hope you're all doing well. Last night was monumental. France, European wrestling has been swept under a rock for way too long. Years, decades in the scene, worked extremement hard to build this hunger for pro wrestling, and then they earned their flowers. Here to name a few because they deserve it. The long-running TV announcers in France, Christophe Agus and Philippe Charroux, and wrestlers like Mike D. Vecchio, Aigil Blanc, referee Alex Schneider, and all of those involved in these.
What a moment it must have been for the French announce team, by the way, who apparently are kind of like local legends because they have done this for 30 years. They've been the announce team in France, which means that they go into a production booth once a week for 52 weeks a year, or twice a week maybe, I don't know what their actual schedule is, and they just sit in a little quiet booth and they commentate on the wrestling, and they're not in the arena. They get to be in the arena, they get to hear their work chanted back at them. That must have been just so special. I just love that for them.
Homer Star said, this might feel out of place, but I feel bad for Kairi Sane. It feels like since they've been brought up to the main roster in 2019, she's just been relegated to Asuka's friend. I hope she gets given a chance to shine soon. Maybe bring back the pirate gimmick.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
It's not even necessarily Asuka's friend so much as it is because Asuka was established when you get put in the tag team.
Yeah,
I would love to see her go watch the Mae Young Classic.
Matt here said the Triple H comments at the media scrum were dumb. Thankfully, he realized his mistake and apologized to both Sean and Mike afterwards. Do better trips. That's all I could say. It's not a good look for him, and hopefully, he learns from it going forward. I tell you this, Matt, he won't, because I found that to be. Unfortunately, we've gone so long on this because I could talk about this for a little while. So if you don't know what the context of this is, Triple H downplayed places like Fightful and PW Insider for fake reports, and then sort of went off and then sort of actually avoided the question he was being asked about, which was the Drew Gulak, Ronda Rousey things, which did not come from Fightful or PW Insider. They came from the mouth of Ronda Rousey. And then he just sort of sidetracked that question and instead kind of almost lied a little bit as well, because he said that, his contract wasn't renewed. It's actually still under contract. It's just not going to be renewed. And then WWE PR had to call Fightful and Mike Johnson and PW Insider and apologize for Triple H's comments because he wasn't talking about you. Hilariously, They called Fightful and said they weren't talking about you, they were talking about PW Insider. They called PW Insider and said they weren't talking about you, they were talking about Fightful. And they've actually now managed to coordinate it and stuff. Triple H has spoken with Sean directly, according to Sean Ross Sapp, to apologize for his comments. But Sean's whole point is like, I kind of want the apology to be as public as the disrespect was.
I mean, it's an interesting conversation to have at another point about like, what are these media scrums for, honestly? If they are they in kayfabe? Are they not in kayfabe? Are they for finding out information? Are they for asking questions, holding power to account? Or are they just so that you can come out there and brag? Like, it's just once we know, and it's the same thing with the World's End one, where it was like, tell me about this. Or even You're All In one, where like Tony Khan just went off and talked for ages and ages and ages about loads of stuff, but not necessarily answered any of the questions. I think, and Sean is working hard with Fightful to legitimize pro wrestling reporting in a way that it kind of hasn't been for ages and ages, and stuff like this doesn't really help it. I think it was a massive dick move from Triple H, to be honest, and I think we all need to try and work, what are we doing with these media scrums? Really, what are they?
So Triple H needs some media training if he's going to do these press scrum things.
Yeah, to hold it in a bit.
Because he embarrassed himself at that Rumble one when answering the Vince questions, and he fumbled it massively. But the other side of that, I've spoken with people who have worked in media training. They've said that you could give him the media training all he wants, but he has to want to do it.
Yeah, certainly with Khan, yeah.
Absolutely. And Triple H doesn't want to work with wrestling media outlets unless they're approved by WWE. So this is a very classic WWE thing to do, which is to discredit hard-working wrestling outlets to make them so, because if you then don't trust them from one report, you won't trust them from any report, and that's how you manage to get people as Pritchard's whole podcast, his whole point of it is to discredit wrestling media. And you weren't there, I was there, and that is what Triple H is doing, and I think in some cases he's doing it successfully. But he apologized to Sean, and as Sean said, I don't think he meant it. Will here said, the whole show was amazing thanks to the crowd being on flambe the entire night. Also, Tiffany Stratton was an absolute star. Naomi's entrance was incredible. And as I said to Dan on Twitter, the 1D at the end of the match popped me real hard. I just wanted to say that Jade catching Kairi off the dive, spinning her around and hitting that Jade was legitimately incredible. Also, power to them for finding their way back into that after that hot mess in the middle of the match. Lastly, the main event was an already great match, bumped to an all-timer thanks to the crowd. AJ and Cody could be mega big bout machines that were shown here. Also, the camera shaking before the match is one of the best shots in wrestling history.
Same with NXT the other week.
Yeah.
Just people being excited to go out. I love it.
Jack Meredith, hey guys, love the channel and everything you do. In terms of Bloodline, it's great seeing new members, but what do you think is next for everyone involved after the Bloodline ends?
Let's get there first.
I was going to say, let's get there first. Like I very much appreciate that, and like, the idea would be you've then got 8 solo stars. Like 8 top stars is what you kind of want to get out of this. I don't think you'll end up with that. You'll end up with 3 top stars, a couple of tag teams, and some people who would just sort of like not get to that same level. But what you want out of that is star power.
It's something generally as fans we have where we're like almost so excited that we start thinking about the next thing. And we like to know, it's the smart element of it, where we like to know what's next, whereas like, let's just enjoy this bit first.
Tracy has been a member for 8 months in a row. Said, hello boys, do you think Solo was leashed when Roman was champ, and now he can be who he is? Roman and or Paul always stopped him from attacking per tribal chief. Yeah, I mean, that is it, is that he was always held back. Didn't really know how they could control him, and they've been building that for quite some time in terms of promo work and stuff.
Yeah,
as I said, I loved Solo at WrestleMania when he just ran down to the ring, yelled at Roman, was
barking at Roman,
finish him, and Roman was like, I know.
Yeah.
Fanta Consumer has been a member for 4 months in a row. Said, thoughts on Balor dethroning Priest? Also, Dan, I loved your video on Zendaya and challenges.
Thanks, mate. I actually quite like Balor dethroning Priest. I think if you're looking for a way to push Priest over the next level, this could be it. But I was saying that last summer.
Yeah. So. Some guy said, it's a shame Jey didn't get the win with the World Heavyweight Championship picture full with Drew and presumably Punk and Rollins in the future, and the IC title picture is also locked up. This felt like the last chance for a Jey singles run. Well, I mean, like, Jey's going to be going back to the Bloodline, so I don't think you want to put the world title on him anyway, because he's just going to have to lose that so we can go into the faction warfare. Chris here said, hey guys, I enjoyed Backlash, but I'm more excited about the QR codes that seem to suggest that Wyatt 6 will be coming at King of the Queen of the Ring, with 2 audios clearly are Alexa and about Rowan, I think. I'll be one of those to start when the others join in. As it was May 4th yesterday, I was surprised that none of the wrestlers did any Star Wars cosplay, but I can see a lot of similarities between Star Wars and wrestling fandom. They're both passionate and argue about silly things, but are a family of nerds. Jam that jam.
Yeah, there was no... well, I suppose there were none of the cosplay wrestlers, really.
No, exactly. Yeah.
You know, if Zelina Vega was there...
I was about to say, if Zelina was there, you'd have had one.
All about it, yeah.
Well, let's end the poll and see what you thought of this show. I have seen, some members of the chat being like, the crowd ruined the show for them because it was a lot of that. They were, almost too loud. But it was thumbs up 92%, mid 5%. I actually thought that thumbs up would be way higher.
The 92%?
Yeah. I thought this was going to be one of those shows where it was like when we did Dynasty, I think that was like 97-98%.
Yeah, but all of those bots paid for by Tony Khan, of course.
All the bots are against AEW.
Sorry.
That's the gimmick, Dan. The bots are against AEW. If anything, this should have been higher because the bots would have been in favor of WWE. But I thought 92. I actually thought it was going to be higher.
Look, to be a WWE fan is to be under constant attack. I just feel like everyone's going to have their vibes. 92 for me is wild. Yeah. I can't believe that we're in an era where a WWE pay-per-view is getting 92% thumbs up.
That's been the case now since Triple H took over. If it's above 90, that is pretty much the standard.
And it did give me NXT TakeOver vibes at certain points. I'll tell you that.
Well, there you go. That is all we've got time for on this show. Back tomorrow. I won't be doing this show, and I'm gutted because what a lineup it is for it as well. But it is Dan and Tempest will be reviewing the show. Tuesday. I've got my days all mixed up. It's on Tuesday. I won't be here for that show because of the train strikes. But so you'll be doing it with Tempest.
Gunther versus Sheamus on Monday Night Raw.
Ilya Dragunov is wrestling. It's going to be a great show. Thank you all so much for joining us. I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been Dan Layton. Have a great rest of your weekend. Jam that jam.